Гостим во студиото на телевизија 24 амбасадорот на Соединетите Американски држави, господинот Џес Бејли. Господине Бејли, благодарам што ја прифативте поканата за овој интервју. Прв пат сте во телевизија 24.
Right. Thank you very much for having me. It's good to be here. It's taken a little time. I'm sorry about that.
Она што е актуелно денес е интерпелација за недоверба на владата. ВМРО ДПМН се враќа во собрание, ќе имаме поприлично бурен ден политички, условно кажано во наводници, и сега некои од аналитичарите велат дека заостануваме со реформските закони, дека непотребно се занимаваме и губиме време со вакви работи.
I think it's very important that VMRO is coming back into Parliament as the leading opposition party. That having a strong opposition, active in Parliament, discussing laws, is a critical part of a democracy, and very much a part of being a European democracy. As far as the reform process goes, it's, some reforms have gone faster than others. I think that's normal. Some of these reforms are quite complex, and it's not just a matter of passing a law when you're talking about a reform process. What you're trying to do is change how institutions function and indeed how people function. So you'll have the rule of law when judges are acting independently, when people are fighting corruption. It's not just a matter of passing a law, but it's a matter of, in some cases, changing the culture of institutions and politics in the country. And I think that's what citizens in Macedonia is looking for. And indeed, that's what your friends and partners in the European Union and NATO are looking for. So it's a long process. Some of these are complicated, and indeed some of them also require a two-thirds majority. So it's important that the opposition be there and be active in the process.
Амбасадор, не мислите ли дека малку досниме со реформските закони? Владата излезе со план 369 и кажа дека најголем дел од работите се завршени и очекуваме уште опозицијата да се врати во собранието. Ето опозицијата ВМРО ДПМН се враќа во собранието, меѓутоа се чини како да недостасуваат оние клучни реформски закони поврзани со правосудството, тоа што беше клучна мана на македонското современо општество. Реформите во медиумите, овде јавниот сектор. Одиме бавно или?
Well, I think we'll find out what's going to happen in Parliament in the next several days. Again, the opposition is back in Parliament. I understand the working groups have been discussing ways to come to agreement on these important reforms. Look, for Macedonia to move forward, it's going to require a unity of purpose. These are not easy reforms to do, and they'll require all sides working toward it. And indeed, it will require citizens to be vigilant about it. It will require journalists to continue to hold government, opposition, institutions accountable for this, and for civil society to do that as well. So it's not a one-time we pass a law and then the reform is done. It's a long process that Macedonia is embarking upon.
На што треба да се фокусираме приоритетно?
Well, I think the areas which have been discussed quite widely are ones that are well known to people. In bringing about the rule of law, a transparent, independent judiciary, combating corruption and abuse, bringing about a professional, nonpartisan public service that is not beholden to one party or another, reforms in the media. And I think you have seen, again, with the media, I think it illustrates the point that it's not just a matter of passing laws. It's how media behave, how government behaves towards media that will really show you whether you have a free and open discussion of issues.
Македонија после изгледа да влегува во самата завршница кога е во прашање спорот со името, најавена е нова средба на министрите за надворешни работи на Македонија и Грција, Димитров и Коцијас. До каде сме, пред да ве прашам за името, до каде е Македонија на патот кон НАТО, алијансата?
Well, I would describe it in three. There are three separate areas in this. The first is take a look at the 2016 Warsaw Summit, and it pointed to two issues that are really involved in Macedonia's path to NATO, as you say. The first is, as you note, we continue to affirm the Bucharest Summit, which is Macedonia will be offered an invitation once Greece and Macedonia have resolved the name issue. That's the first issue. The second is the one we just spoke about, which is ensuring that the values that are enshrined in the North Atlantic Charter of democracy, of individual liberty, and the rule of law are really adhered to. And that's about the reform process. But it's also important as an ally or a potential ally that wants to be a responsible ally to continue to make investments in Macedonia's security sector, and particularly in its military. And the government, even as it is working on reforms in all these other areas, is also looking at ways to both increase spending, but also to make that spending more efficient and bring additional capabilities to the alliance. So that's an important part of becoming a part of a security alliance.
Сепак, без решение на спорот со Грција, Македонија не може во НАТО. Или може под привремената референца?
I think the Secretary General answered that question when he was here earlier in January. I think it's most important to focus on resolving the name issue. That's what the Bucharest Summit declaration talks about. And indeed, right now is, I think, a very important opportunity, as you have governments in Macedonia and Greece, I think, committed to finding a solution. The solution would be in the interest of regional stability. It would improve bilateral relations, open up, I think, areas of cooperation in business and commerce. So it's in the interests of both countries, and certainly we see it more broadly in the interests of Europe as a whole and the interests of transatlantic security. So I think it's an important opportunity and a moment to be seized. It's not going to get easier as time goes on.
Амбасадоре, мислите дека сме близко до решение на спорот, затоа што и премиерот Зоран Заев изјави кога ќе ја видите следната средба помеѓу мене и Ципрас, да знаете дека имаме достоинствен договор. А средбите на шефовите на дипломатиите се интензивирани, дури некои од медиумите шпекулираат дека се е договорено името Горна Македонија, државјанство Горна Македонија, јазик македонски и останува уште оној детал на кој што ова се шпекулации нормално поврзано со измените во уставот, промените во уставот.
Well, I think it's important to let Macedonia and Greece talk about where they are in this negotiation. I'm not sitting in the room, and I'm not able to say whether something is or is not resolved. Clearly, productive discussions are going on. I think they've talked about many issues. Some of this has been out in the press. Some of it is speculation in the press. You've had a more public discussion of these issues, and that's a very important part of this, as these are sensitive issues in both countries. So where the negotiations are, I think I'll let the two foreign ministers speak to that tomorrow after they've had their talks.
Ова го прашувам затоа што македонската јавност добива впечаток дека меѓународната заедница сиот свој притисок го има насочено токму кон Македонија и дека Грција е поштедена од било каков притисок. Дека се е на грбот на Македонија. Вие мора да го промените ова, вие мора да го промените името, јазикот, идентитетот.
I think it's important that both of these countries, both Macedonians and Greeks, these are sensitive issues. You mentioned some of the issues involved. The only durable solution is going to be one that the two sides come together and mutually agree upon. That's what's going to be, that's what will last. That will be what resolves the issue. We can encourage it, and indeed we do. I think it's important to remind people of what the potential benefits are more broadly, rather than just focus on what might be lost in such a compromise. But at the end of the day, this will be about Macedonia and Greece coming together for a mutual solution to the issue.
Амбасадоре, има ли НАТО алијансата или Америка како наш стратешки партнер на Македонија, план Б, доколку не го решиме спорото со Грција, затоа што веројатно и до вас стигаат оние најави од Русија која што се противи на влезот на Македонија против НАТО?
Right now, I'm not going to speculate about Plan Bs. I think it's been very clear, and I think Macedonian people have been very clear about what their aspirations are. The citizens of this country overwhelmingly have supported membership in NATO. Successive governments since 1993 have supported this, irrespective of whether they're from the left or the right, across all communities. So that is very much where the citizens of this country want to go. That's something that we have supported since that time as well. So I don't see there being a plan B here. To become a full member of NATO, to become a full ally is what people aspire to. There are issues along the way, and I think it's important to concentrate on how those issues can be overcome. We have said, the alliance has said, that it remains open to any country that wants to join the alliance, that meets the criteria for membership, and also accepts the responsibility it undertakes as an ally. That's a pretty solemn promise. And Macedonia has consistently wanted to be on that path. That's the path we support. I don't see why Russia would have any problem with that.
Официјално Москва предупредува дека влезот на Македонија во НАТО би можел да има последици за регионалната безбедност, но и за билатералните односи меѓу двете земји. Вакви информации стигнува до нас, медиумите и воопшто до јавност. Затоа прашам.
I would say simply this, that NATO is a defensive alliance that has for 70 years defended our values, our freedoms, our prosperity. I can very much see why the citizens of this country would want to join this alliance. And indeed, it's something that can help guarantee Macedonia's sovereignty. You would have your neighbors would not just be your neighbors, they would be your allies. And I think that is a very important point. I think it puts to rest many of the fears that some people in Macedonia express about the country being somehow divided in various kinds of scenarios. So I think it's important to stay focused on this path, and I think it is possible to come to a compromise with Greece that meets both countries' needs and allows both countries in the region to move forward.
Можеме на следниот самит да очекуваме дека ќе станеме полноправна членка на НАТО?
Well, I think what's important is to focus on the things that we just talked about what's needed to happen. As you mentioned first, that's going to depend on what the status of the name negotiations are. And I don't know whether that will be done or not by then. So that's important. Continuing with reforms, as we said, reaffirming the core values of the alliance, and continuing to invest in your own security. Those are all three very things that will help answer that question. In terms of the timing, once those issues can be considered by the alliance, and in particular the name issue, then you can talk about where it fits into timing. The good part of this is that you already have a decision from the alliance as a whole about membership. That's a good thing. So it'll be up to the alliance, if everything goes as I have suggested, it'll be up to the alliance to decide how to implement that decision. And I don't know whether that will be at a summit or through some other mechanism.
Сосема за крај, која е пораката која што ќе испратите до лидерите на политичките партии овде во Македонија, независно дали се тоа македонски, албански политички субјекти, која е пораката која што ќе испратите до нив, затоа што голем дел од јавноста добива перцепција дека се занимаваме со споредни работи наместо да се насочиме кон реформските закони. Вклучително овде некој го тумача и законот за албански, со употреба на албанскиот јазик, дека немаше потреба сега кога застоиме со реформските закони да брзаме со закон за јазиците.
I think what's important is you have to work through political processes. And so you have a governing coalition that has its agreements and moves forward. I think, but in terms of focusing on reforms and what's upcoming, it's very important to find those areas where you have unity of purpose around Macedonia's membership and path towards the European Union and NATO. Next week, you'll have some very important decisions coming out from the European Commission. And so I think it's important to focus on those things. But at the same time, politics is politics. And I don't think, you've got decisions that have been taken in Parliament already. And so those have to work through the political system as well. I think it's important that you address the issue where 75% of the people of this country have expressed their desire to move forward on reforms, to move forward on the path towards Euro-Atlantic institutions. And that's where I think you need to focus.
Тоа е веројатно и пораката до лидерите на политичките партии, кои што се главни чинители.
I don't think they would be surprised to hear that from me.
И благодарам за разговорот.
Thank you very much.